pioneering expert in performance and behavior transformation, dedicated to empowering individuals and organizations to unlock their full potential. With a background that spans psychology, education, and neuroscience, she founded the Post-Betrayal Transformation Institute to merge cutting-edge research with practical, evidence-based strategies. In her own words, she didn't choose to become a post-betrayal transformation expert. Betrayal happened, and she was forced to choose her own response. Through her innovative methods, integrating mindfulness, behavioral science, and neuroscience, Dr. Silber has helped countless clients overcome obstacles and achieve lasting personal and professional growth. Her work not only redefines what it means to perform one's best, but also champions a holistic approach to change and development. Gosh, there's a lot there. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll dive straight into it if that's okay. I just wanted to start a little bit with a bit of your background. What were your formative years like? How was your family dynamic? How did all that link into what you're doing today?
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. I don't think anybody says, I think I want to study betrayal. No, it's not that kind of topic. You study it because you have to. So I've been in business 33 years, health, mindset, personal development. And then there was a painful betrayal from my family. I thought I did everything I needed to do to heal from that. And then it happened again a few years later. This time it was my husband. Anybody who's been through it, you're shocked, you're devastated, blindsided. So that was the deal breaker. I'm a highly sensitive empath with integrity as my highest value. So there was nothing about that sat well. And here I was, 4 kids, 6 dogs, a thriving practice, and I needed to get well. I couldn't afford just to check out. And usually I go to books or courses or something to learn my way through something. And I couldn't find anything. So I enrolled in a PhD program. I had no idea how I was going to pull this off, pay for it, manage the time. And then it was time to do a study. So I studied betrayal, and I truly took on that topic to help me heal. That was it. That study led to 3 discoveries, which changed my health, my family, my work, my life.
You can't leave us hanging. So what were those 3 discoveries?
Yeah, sure. So the first one was, originally I wanted to study betrayal and post-traumatic growth. I love the sort of upside of a trauma, how any trauma leaves you with a new awareness, insight, perspective you didn't have. But I've been through death of a loved one. I've been through disease. And I was like, betrayal feels different. I didn't want to assume it was the same for everyone in my study. So I asked them, if you've been through other traumas besides betrayal, does it feel different for you? And unanimously, they said it's so different. Here's why. Because it feels so intentional, we take it so personally. So the entire self gets shattered: rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust. Like if you lose someone you love, you grieve, you're sad, you mourn the lost, life will never be the same. You picture that Thanksgiving table, right? And they're not there or whatever. Yeah. But you don't necessarily question the relationship. You don't question the ability to trust. You don't question your sanity. With betrayal, you do. So the first discovery was that betrayal is in fact a different type of trauma. And while there are aspects of it that qualify as post-traumatic growth, it's almost like post-traumatic growth plus rebuilding the self equals a new term I coined, post-betrayal transformation, because you do have to rebuild yourself as well.
One of the things that I found when I suffered a betrayal was that sort of immediate sort of self-examination. Was it something that I'd done wrong? But like I say, with the death, my mum died a couple of years ago, and I didn't judge myself. Did I do something wrong? Did I cause that? But with the betrayal, because like I say, because it is, well, certainly is unexpected. You think, yeah, but something must have happened. It can't possibly be as clear as that. And do you find a lot of people sort of challenge themselves or almost blame themselves sometimes for the betrayal?
Yeah, most do. It is so common where, if someone were to, let's say, choose alcohol, you don't take it personally. When they choose another, we do. So it's one of those things. And having worked with so many people who've been betrayed, and we have a program for the betrayers as well. So I really find out what's going on with them as well. I can solidly say, and even from my own experience, I truly now know and believe, even though it happened to you, it's not about you. It really isn't. This was someone's unhealed trauma, their sense of entitlement, their lack, their scarcity, whatever it was. None of that excuses the behavior, but it's not about us. It is an opportunity, however, to look and say, what was I, not that it's our fault, it is our opportunity. What was I settling for? What was I allowing? What was I tolerating? What was I not speaking up about? Lots we can learn from the experience.
And how does somebody overcome those feelings? So if you feel like you've been betrayed, it's not necessarily a case of you going to get back together with the friend, with the family, with the loved one. And I spoke to somebody about this before, and they sort of said, well, you've got to sort of accept it's their choice, their decision, it's they've decided. And that again sort of leaves you, me, whoever in limbo, really. It's like, well, okay, I'm not sure what to do with that. So how do you overcome? Because I had a betrayal a few years ago, and I still think about it now. It's still, this is 3 years ago now, and it's silly. I should have literally completely got over it. It wasn't a relationship; it was a friendship. And it's how do you actually? Well, is saying get over it the right phrase? I'm sure it's not. But how do you accept it? And as you say, how do you grow from that betrayal, if that's the right phrase?
Yeah, the answer is in the third discovery. And this was, I'll get to the second one after, but what was discovered was, while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and many people do, if we're going to fully heal, we're going to move through 5 now proven predictable stages. And what's even more exciting about that is we now know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally at every stage. And we know what we need to do in order to move from one stage to the next. Healing is entirely predictable. And to answer your question, and I'm happy to share the stages, most people get stuck in stage 3. And when you say it's been 3 years, why aren't I over it? Good chance you're stuck in stage 3. Most people are. Happy to share the stages. You will see exactly where you are if I do.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So it's all we do within the PBT Institute. It's what all of our coaches are certified in. Here's a boiled down version. So stage 1 is actually before it happens. And if you can imagine 4 legs of a table, the 4 legs being physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. What I saw with all my participants, me too, was this heavy lean on the physical and the mental, thinking and doing, right? And kind of neglecting or ignoring the emotional and the spiritual, feeling and being. Well, if a table only has 2 legs, it's going to be easy for that table to topple over. That's us. Stage 2, shock, trauma, D-Day, discovery day. This is the scariest of all of the stages. Everyone remembers their D-Day. And this is the breakdown of the body, the mind, and the worldview. So right here, we've now ignited the stress response. We're headed for every single stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. Our mind is in a state of chaos. We cannot understand what just happened. This makes no sense. Here's where the person just sort of took their mask off. And our worldview has just been shattered. Our worldview is our mental model, the rules that govern us, and that keep us safe. Don't go here, trust this person. These are the rules. And in one earth-shattering moment or series of moments, every rule we've been holding to be real and true is no longer. The bottom has bottomed out, and a new bottom hasn't been formed yet. This is terrifying, right? Yeah. But think about it. If the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You'd grab hold of anything or anyone.
Yes.
Right? In order to stay safe and stay alive. And that's stage 3. Survival instincts emerge. This is the most practical out of all of the stages. This is what I mentioned before. If you can't help me, get out of my way. How do I survive this? Who can I trust? Right? Here's the trap, though. By far, hands down, this is the stage we get stuck in. And here's why. Once we've figured out how to survive our experience, because it feels so much better than the shock and trauma we just came from, like the shock of finding out about your friend, right? Because this feels so much better, we take it. We think it's good. And because we don't know there's anywhere else to go, we don't know there's a stage 4 or stage 5, We kind of park here. We're not supposed to, but we do. And 4 things start to happen. The first thing is we start getting all those small self benefits. We get our story. We love our story. We get sympathy from everyone we share our story with. We get someone to blame. We get a target for our anger, on and on it goes. So we take it. Now that we're here longer than we should be, and to your point that you shared earlier, here's where we say, maybe it was my fault. Maybe I'm not that great. Maybe this, maybe that. So we plant deeper roots. And now, because these are the thoughts we're thinking, well, this is the energy we start putting out. Like energy attracts like energy. So now we're attracting people and circumstances and even new relationships towards us to confirm this is where we belong. Here's where we join that lame support group, and we will actually sabotage our healing because we found our people. Here's where we're healing and we sabotage our growth because we're afraid to outgrow our betrayer. Here's where we find a therapist who isn't, and if that therapist is not highly skilled in betrayal, you'll feel heard, validated, and understood, and you are not 1 degree closer to stage 4. And you're wondering, I've been going to therapy for years. Why am I not healing? You're actually crazy gluing your spot in stage 3. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. I absolutely. I went to therapy and then stopped because I didn't seem to be. I just don't think the wasn't the person's fault. It just wasn't maybe their particular skill set. And I think there was a sort of view that betrayal was like any other trauma in your life, small or big, and okay, we say move on from that in the same way you move on from losing your job or losing a family, all those sort of things. And it didn't feel right. Then when I came across your work, I thought, that's why it didn't feel right. So yeah, I'm sort of in that stage 3 piece where it feels sort of safe in a way, because I know where I am and what I'm getting. So it's almost that. Yeah, I'm not sure necessarily I think stage 3 is like, okay, well, that's sort of, I'm not necessarily happy or comfortable, but it's I'm not in stage 2 anymore. It's just a good thing.
Exactly.
But it's almost knowing that the next stages exist, I suppose, is the power of it.
Exactly. And stage 3, what really seals the deal for us in stage 3 is because we're not happy, but we don't know there's a stage 4 or stage 5.
Yeah.
Transformation doesn't even begin until stage 4 because we don't know there's anywhere else to go. We have to get through our day. We have things to do. So right here, we start numbing, avoiding, and distracting. So we do it for a day, a week, a month. Now it's a habit, a year, 10 years, 20 years. And I can see someone 20 years later and say, that, emotional eating you're doing, that drinking, that numbing in front of the TV, whatever it is. Do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? And they look at me like I'm crazy. They'd say it happened 20 years ago. All they did was put themselves in stage 3. You see? So This is why this is the stage that most of us stay stuck in. Mm-hmm. Can I get you out of stage 3 into stage?
Please do.
Okay. All right. So if you're willing to let go of the story, willingness is a big word right here. Grieve, mourn the loss, bunch of things you need to do. You move to stage 4. Mm-hmm. Stage 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. So here's where you acknowledge, I can't undo what happened, but I control what I do with it. Right there in that decision, you're turning down the stress response. You're not healing just yet, but you just stopped the massive damage you've been accumulating in stages 2 and stage 3. Stage 4 feels like if you've ever moved. If you've ever moved to a new house, office, whatever, your stuff's not there. It's not quite cozy yet, but it's this sort of hopeful excitement, right? Yeah. Feels like that. But think about it. If you were to move, you're not taking everything with you. You're not taking the things that don't represent the version of you that you're now ready to become, right? Mm-hmm. And what I saw was there's this one spot as people move from stage 3 to stage 4. If your friends weren't there for you, they don't come along. That lame support group, you're done. That betrayer who's not changing, you're done. That therapist who is not highly skilled in betrayal, you're done. And people say all the time, I've had these people in my life for years. Is it me? Yes, it is. Not in that, right? Not in that it's your fault. You're undergoing a transformation. And if they don't rise, They don't come along. So it's a very personal space, right? Anyway, when we settle into this space, we make it kind of mentally cozy and home. We move into the fifth most beautiful stage, and this is healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. The body starts to heal. Self-love, self-care, eating well, like all that stuff. We could do that earlier. The mind is healing. We're making all kinds of new rules, new boundaries based on everything we see so clearly. And we have a new worldview based on the road we just traveled. And the four legs of that table in the beginning, it was all about physical and mental. But at this point, we're solidly grounded because we're focused on the emotional and the spiritual too. Those are the 5 stages.
And I guess there's no rule as to how long each stage takes.
You know, it's interesting because I thought, as a researcher, you're not supposed to assume anything, but I didn't know. I thought the ones who were the hardest hit would take the longest because they had the most to overcome. That had nothing to do with it. What I found was the biggest needle mover was willingness.
Yeah.
The more willing they were, the more easily they moved through the stages. And here's what's interesting too. There were 3 groups in the study that did not heal. The first group, this was the group, they had their story, they were sticking with it. They refused to let go of that story, right? They didn't heal. The second group, this was the group that was numbing, avoiding, distracting. They ran to the doctor who put them on a mood stabilizer or anti-anxiety medication. They numbed however they did. May have made the day a bit easier to get through. Now without a price, they didn't heal. The third group, this was the group where the betrayer had very little consequences. So whether it was out of financial fear, religious reasons was a big one, not wanting to shake up anything. They did all they could to just turn the other cheek, look the other way, put it behind them. And I saw 2 things with this group. Number 1, a further deterioration of that relationship. And number 2, this group was the most physically sick. Their broken heart couldn't handle that. But what so many people do is they're so afraid of that complete and total crash and burn of the old. But that's the only way you birth the new, whether it's a new you or a new collective you and that person that you had that betrayal with.
And so does it take going through the stages to be ready and open for whatever a new relationship might look like? Because if you've just been through and it might not, to somebody outside, it might not feel like a big betrayal at all. It might just feel like, well, that's just part of life, really. But if you're sort of in that, then it's quite hard to then sort of say, right, on to the next one then. It's yeah. So is
That's
that
where
you get
people
the stages now? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. You see, here's the thing. When you're in stage 3, I'll show you this with my hands. You will never forget this. Here we are. We're in our relationship, and then there's a betrayal, and we're so devastated. We're so upset, and we just want that pain to go away. So we do this again, whether it's the same person or someone very similar. The faces change, but it's the same thing. And we live a life like this. We hate the pain, and we keep going back for more, right? Because we just don't want to be alone, whatever it is. Here's the opportunity. After the betrayal, you move out of stages 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. But if you're so committed to this person right here, what you're going to keep doing is sabotaging your healing because you're afraid to outgrow them.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. You like it up here. So then at some point you're like, why can't they do this? Well, they're not ready or willing or whatever. So if you're so committed to this person and you do this, now eventually you get this, where they're like, oh, what happened to you? You're not the least bit interested in them. So the idea is you do this without having any indication of what the other person's going to do. And this person may say, I better step up my game to meet the strength of this person. Or, they just go their own way. But if this is where you are and this is where you live and there's no changing this can't help but show up because this is who you are. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. I like I'm very big on visuals, so that I like the physical gap and like you say, the potential sliding back really. So and I'm not sure if it's possible to answer this question, but if you've suffered, is that the right word, a betrayal with somebody, from somebody, etc., but you still have, obviously, it's very hard to suddenly turn off your feelings. Is it Is it possible to overcome the betrayal and go and be back with the person? So if it's a marriage or if it's a marriage and something happens and your partner cheats on you or decides something isn't working and goes, but then you get back together again, is that betrayal always under the surface? I'm sorry, I'm almost answering my own question. It sort of feels that you've then got to unpack it together and have proper therapy support with a specialist.
It's a great question. Betrayal will show you who someone truly is. It also has the opportunity to wake them up to who they temporarily became. When that's what happens, you don't have to do anything with it, but the opportunity is there. See, rebuilding is always a choice. Just to close the loop on my story, whether you rebuild yourself and move on, and that's what I do with my family. They were not changing, so it was just for me to heal and move along. Or if the situation lends itself, if you're willing, if you want to, you rebuild something entirely new with the person who hurt you. That's what I did with my husband. So not long ago, as two completely transformed people, we married each other again. New rings, new vows, new dress, and our 4 kids bridal party. Now, never, I'm a bright woman. I have a PhD. Never would I do something like that if I didn't completely transform, and for sure if he didn't as well. But just as the betrayed becomes someone they didn't have access to before the betrayal, that's the opportunity, and an opportunity for the betrayer as well. Not that you need to do anything with that, but when the betrayed does this, and then the betrayer says, I'm doing this too, you have the opportunity to meet up again at a very different place. But what I see is, like I said, people are so afraid of that death and destruction of the old, so they don't have the opportunity to birth something very new.
It's a very interesting distinction between I want what I had versus I want something new, maybe with the person I had that with. So that's a really interesting discussion, because because going back always feels like the wrong thing to do in terms of in terms of going backwards, not in terms of going back. But going backwards, it's almost like, well, but you're going to go into the same situation being the same person. So it can't work really. There has to be that big change, which is a big step, isn't it? You've got to really, like for you and your husband, you've got to really want to do it, and really, willingness, both have the willingness to make the change and make things different this time around.
And really, why in the world would you go back to something that was the same? Here, I use this analogy a lot. This will explain it as well. Here's the difference between resilience and transformation, using the idea of an old house. Let's say there's an old house and it needs a new roof. You get a new roof, right? That's resilience. You're restoring it. You're bringing it back. Or let's say it needs a new paint job and you paint. That's resilience. You're bringing it back. Here's trauma and transformation. A tornado comes by and levels the house. A new roof's not going to fix it, and a new paint job's not going to fix it, right? Now, you have every right to stand there at the lot where your house once stood and say, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. And you'd be right. And everybody you brought over, look at this. Isn't this terrible and horrible? They'd all agree. You can kick and scream and cry and mourn the loss of your house until your last breath. However, should you choose to rebuild the house, you don't have to. But if you choose to, why would you build the same one?
Yeah.
Right? Why not give it everything the old house didn't have? That's the opportunity.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. Yeah. It's funny, isn't it, how we, maybe we, if I say we, as when I sort of think about, gosh, you used to want things to be, things a certain way, therefore I'll go back to that certain way and then things will be okay. When you think about it rationally, that doesn't make sense at all. Like you say, why on earth spend all the time, effort, energy building the house exactly the same when it always frustrated you the way that door opened? It was always annoying that the pantry was on the left instead of the right. It was always annoying that the guest bedroom was next to the main bedroom, whatever. So why? And the same with relationships. It was always annoying that the person did this or I did that, or we did this together. So why not try and change those things? But it's quite it feels quite an unusual step to have a major betrayal in your family and in your relationship, and then decide that the solution with 4 children, 6 dogs is to go and do a PhD. And then after that, think, right, I'm now going to establish an institute and help everybody else with this. So as opposed to, right, I'll try and get myself better and more accepting or more willing, why did you then decide to actually, no, this is going to be, I'm so passionate about this. This is going to be what's my legacy is going to be changing views on betrayal.
I remember a very specific moment going through the study, and I don't know, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And I said, I have no idea how I'm going to heal from this, but if I do, I'm taking everyone with me. I guess because for me, the injustice, the feeling of injustice was eating me up alive. And it wasn't even enough to heal myself and heal my family. That's how great this injustice felt for me. I guess I can only equate it to when you see these parents going around speaking about not to drink and drive because they lost a child. It's like on some level, it helps them. And knowing that the books and the institute and the talks and the everything is helping countless people is trauma well spent.
It 100% is. And actually, it's just not something that is given consideration in the way lots of other things that affect us mentally and physically are. And it's one of those things, like you said before, it's 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. We get over it. Don't get over it. It's not that. It's about, unless you go through the stages, you're not going to get over it. And I know people that have fallen out with their families 20 years ago, never spoken since, and it's still something I think about every Christmas, every birthday, and they're not going to get through that unless they, like you said, get past stage 3, really.
They're in stage 3. We have I remember a woman in our community in her mid 80s. She had a 70+ year digestive issue. 45% of everyone betrayed has a gut issue. 70+ year digestive issue. Her family didn't tell her she was adopted, but like something like that. 2 weeks in our program, healed from a 70+ year digestive issue. I mean, that's what goes on. We're carrying, and I didn't even get to the second discovery, which talks about that. But that's what happens. Unless and until we deliberately heal this, we carry it with us for life. It affects our health, our work, our relationships, everything.
And that's something I'm really interested in, just generally. I think we are starting to learn more about it, the fact that things that impact us emotionally or mentally have a big impact on us physically. So I always have, you nail it, I always have digestive issues, stomach problems, whatever. Whenever I have that, I hold all of my tension, stress, everything in there. I really do. It's not a nice place, but I know, I can tell when it's okay. I'm not going to feel. It's not that I'm going to be feeling sad, or it's physically, the emotions are going to be a very, very physical, very visceral reaction.
And think about what the gut does. It absorbs, digests, and processes food.
Yeah.
Isn't a betrayal difficult to absorb, digest, and process? Like, is it any wonder
absolutely.
The gut is off?
Yeah. But it's one of the things you say, isn't it? I really can't swallow that. I really can't. And it literally is that. It's sort of, this blockage happens and it's not going to digest. It's not something, unless you find the right medicine, in this case, the talking and the stages and everything. And one of the things, I guess, that you must come across a lot is when you work with individuals, couples, organizations, how do you help people to transform their habits? Because I think so much of it is habits which lead to performance, good or bad or whatever. How do you get people to engage with the need to change their habits, whether it be at work or personally or just in life generally?
They need to change their beliefs, because what most people do is they'll change their behavior in order to change their result. But what they don't realize is the behavior is existing because of the belief. So if you catch the belief and change that, that will automatically change the behavior. That will automatically change the result. So it's not really about, like, the simplest example is, let's say, a weight loss program.
Mhm.
Well, eat this now and you lose weight. Now, think about it. Why do 90 something percent of diets all fail? It's because the beliefs were never addressed.
Yeah.
You address the belief, the weight naturally finds its way off of you. So it's really about addressing the beliefs, but it's very it's multifaceted, because we have one coach who specializes in mindset within the
Mhm.
community, but we have another coach who specializes in the somatic body-based activities, because the issues are in the tissues. We have this stored trauma. I just spoke with someone and she was saying she remembered her dad attacking her mom. That's, if we don't get that out of the tissues, it led to a lifetime of different types of betrayals. We need to see that, what's there physically, mentally, and emotionally. And this is also why, when all we do is, let's say, talk therapy, we're not addressing it fully. It's everywhere and it all has to be addressed.
And do you find it's a very different experience when you're dealing with individuals versus companies, businesses?
Companies it's interesting because, first of all, it's a different language with companies.
Yeah.
How an unhealed betrayal shows up in companies, it would be with their employees: low productivity, low morale, absenteeism,
Mhm.
presenteeism, high turnover, and they're spending an insane amount of money on having that person deal with stress-related issues,
Yeah.
right? And meanwhile, at the root of it is this unhealed betrayal. It's interesting because um, I have a simple chart that shows the highest symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome. We didn't talk about that. And then how it directly affects someone at work. And then what's even interesting is how that symptom heals as they move through the stages. So let's say for trust issues, like, for example, I'll just read you one stat:
Mhm.
84% of everybody betrayed. And we've had over 100,000 people take our post-betrayal syndrome assessment on our site to see to what extent they're struggling. 84% have an inability to trust. So think about an inability to trust, how that would affect your performance at work,
Absolutely.
right? But if you, as you move through the stages and you heal that, now, if you're more trusting at work, think about the difference in connection you'd have with a boss, a coworker, collaborative partner. You see, it affects everything.
Trust is such a massive word, isn't it? I mean, and it's only 5 letters, but it's such a huge thing. Yeah, within a corporate life or within a personal life, having that ability to trust in a meeting setting, in a pitch scenario, in whatever, it's just so different, because you can't. You can fake sincerity and you can fake lots of things, but you can't fake trust, because
Mhm.
it's either something that is had or not. So I think, yeah, being able to help that 84% of people would change the dynamics of businesses, really. And
A
like I say,
hundred-
it is very measurable. So number of sick days, how turnover of staff, new hires, productivity, revenue, everything. It's so measurable, and being able to improve it, I think is massively important.
All of it. And think about it, there's such a ripple effect with it too, because think about it now, the person you trusted the most proved untrustworthy. So then the next step is, uh, if where was I? How did I not see? How did I not know? Now we don't trust ourselves. So if we don't trust ourselves, we don't trust our own discernment. We don't trust our decision making. We don't trust any of it. So then the natural thing is, if I can't trust the person I trust the most, and I don't even trust myself, how in the world can I trust that boss, that coworker, that collaborative partner? It's
Mm.
impossible until it's healed.
Yeah, and I can think of a sort of huge group of people right now. So in the US, there's a big challenge, obviously, that the federal workforce are facing,
Mhm.
and it almost literally is a definition of betrayal of the values they believed in, betrayal of the role they undertook, and betrayal of the belief they had in the value of what they were doing. So yeah, you're going to be quite busy, I think, sadly,
And
because for those
and
people
this
to
is
trust again.
what's so interesting. I don't believe trust can be repaired. I do believe it can be rebuilt, though.
Yeah,
It's a big job, but it can be rebuilt. I see it every
yeah.
day.
at least it requires fundamental change of, like, back again, isn't it, to change those beliefs, which change behaviors. Yeah, but if it's going to be the same people and people say, no, it'll be different this time. Yeah, how many times have we been through that at work when it's like, no, there won't be any layoffs this time. Oh, well, I know that was different now. Like, yeah, when you've been through it 2, 3, 4 times, sadly, you think,
well, that's the thing. And, it is a beautiful opportunity for the person who shattered the trust to wake up. But if not, then it's on us. Because if we're just giving that trust back so freely, so willingly, without changes on the other side, first of all, we need to take a look at why are we so willing to do that?
Yeah. So are you seeing more and more acknowledgement and advances in how we think about betrayal and we think about trust and we address the issues? Is it something that's coming to the fore more nowadays than it was previously?
I think there's so much shame and embarrassment and humiliation attached to it that that's one of the biggest things that people are just so uncomfortable. Like, I see, we have a lot of men in our program who've been betrayed. And we have a lot of men and women in our program for the betrayer. So I think the more obvious it is that this is just, something that happens, that we can do something about without the shame, without the judgment, the better off everyone will be. Because it's really just about getting the support so you're better for, your kids and your work and in all your different areas of life.
So how is the support, guidance, and mentorship you offer different for the betrayer versus the betrayed? So and maybe I'm thinking about it wrong. So if I'm a guy, and I've been, the last 5 relationships that I've had, I've broken them up by cheating with somebody else and moved on to the next person. So I've always been the betrayer, and this is fictional now. So I've always been the betrayer, and I said, well, that doesn't seem quite right. Why is it always like that? So how do you engage with that person?
Yeah. So, clearly this wouldn't be a program for someone who doesn't acknowledge or take any responsibility for their behavior, right?
Yeah.
So already it's for the person who says, I'm so tired of my behavior, I'm ready to become someone I'm proud of. Yeah. That would be who would be interested in a program like this. They have a separate community. There's no overlap, so this way there's no triggering with the betrayed. They still meet with our coaches. They have their own curriculum. We actually give them our signature program as well, so they increase their empathy and understand what betrayal does. And they meet with me. And it's so interesting because at first when I started this program, I thought, would I be triggered?
I was going to ask that, yeah.
With these betrayers. And it's one of the highlights of my work within the PBT Institute because they are so willing. And I'm giving them the playbook because I only know things from the betrayed's perspective, right? So I'm saying, don't ever say this, don't ever do that. And they are writing feverishly. Yeah. And there was a couple just recently. It was so beautiful. In this case, not always the case, but she was the betrayed and he was the betrayer. And I was working with him and he was taking notes. And he was like, I got it. And then I'm in a group call with the betrayed and she says, I got to tell you, my husband, like I'm seeing changes like he was in high school and it's so beautiful. And I was silently rooting him on because I realized he was really doing the work. So that's what happens. The betrayed does their work, the betrayer does their work, and they meet up again as two very different people. It's beautiful to see.
Because I would think, and I need to never assume things as a researcher, but I would think that people don't set out to be betrayers. There's not something, right, I'm going to start this relationship and after 9 months, I'm going to look for somebody else. I'm going to betray this person or my family or my friends or my colleagues, whatever. So I think, like I say, by the time the person's got to a point where they recognize it's there's some behavioral issue or some value or some thoughts they have that are wrong, they come to you. You sort of hope that by that stage that they're ready and accepting of this doesn't feel good for me either. So I don't think people you don't want to give the betrayers a break, really, but I don't think people want to betray. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. There's no shaming or blaming in our community, but I'm not easy on them either.
Yeah.
And if I even get a sense when I'm on a group call with them, if I get a sense that they're, let's say, blaming their partner for leaving after the betrayal, oh, I can't believe he or she now is going to break up the family. Oh, no, 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 no. Your actions caused the person to leave, not their response. So I mean, I don't really let them get away with anything, but
Mm.
they meet with their coaches. And like I said, it's a very different curriculum, but they're doing tremendous work, because if they have the opportunity to rebuild with their partner, they're really looking at it like their partner is very carefully and cautiously handing over their heart that's been shattered in a million pieces, saying, I'm willing to do this. What are you going to do with it? And it's also really interesting because there was a recent conversation in the betrayer community, and I had this one woman, and she said, it's really scary because what if now I'm so open and I'm so vulnerable, and then they attack me? And I said, well, now you had your first glimpse of what your partner feels, being
Yeah.
vulnerable enough to be willing to try to rebuild something with you. So it's a whole relearning. It's beautiful.
Mm. And you must hear a lot of very difficult stories, very difficult situations, and learn some things about people that are challenging. So how do you protect your own mental and physical well-being? How do you make sure you can be the best version of yourself?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've been coaching for 33 years, and one thing that I've learned is I need to get close enough so they know I get it and they know I'm with them, but I can't go so deeply that I'm in the ditch with them and I can't pull them out. So
Yes.
it's this very delicate balance where they know I'm with them, I'm filling it with them every step of the way, but I'm of no value to them if I just I'm down there with them. So I try to just keep just enough distance so that I'm always there to support them. And my coaching is also very different than some of my coaches, where they're proficient at stage 2 and stage 3, way
Mhm.
better at that than I could ever be. My skill set, while I can help in those areas, my sort of zone of genius, if you will, is more in the stages 4 and 5. When someone is out of the deep, deep trauma and they see their value and their worth, now I come in and we create a new business, a new self, a new everything. That lights me up.
It's a big thing, isn't it? When you almost know somebody sort of graduated from stage 5 and they're sort of this new things are new to them and it's all worked out. It must be very emotional when somebody gets through. And somebody that might have come in and just felt completely lost, really, and you sort of helped guide them. I really, one of the things I really like about what you've been saying is you have a very, it sounds silly, very visual way of talking, where you're sort of saying, and it was perfect. I sort of saying, look, well, if they're in a hole, it's not about getting in a hole with them because they can't get out, and that I really, it really, really helps me. I think, oh, yeah, okay, that visual way of talking. It's a really, yes, I don't know whether you intentionally do it or not, but it's a really, really helpful in terms of how you communicate things. So what's on the horizon for you? Is it not more of the same, but how do you expand the work you've done? How do you get more people to understand about
Yeah.
overcoming betrayal and changing and taking the opportunity and the challenge to become something else? What's next for you?
We have a few different things we're doing. One is our certification program, and that's really for doctors, coaches, healers, therapists, counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists, because if they all know about the 5 stages, think about how many more people can get that type of support. So that's one thing we're doing. And the very new thing we're doing is there are certain countries that just don't have access to this kind of information. So we have just launched PBT in Vietnam, in the Middle East. We're working on Kenya, and it's translated into Vietnamese, Arabic, Swahili, I think, whatever. And the idea is it's being led by a certified PBT coach. Our signature program is translated to their language, and this way, and the currency is in their currency and at a price they can afford. And this way, people who wouldn't have access to this information in other countries are now. I mean, we have people who come, who work with us from all over the world, but these specific populations and more now will have access to this information.
Oh, that's a really kind thing to do. That's really, yeah. And people get so much value from that. I hadn't really thought. Do you find that different cultures address betrayal in different ways?
They definitely do. And that was one of the biggest reasons why, when I was approached about this, I thought it's a great opportunity, because I don't know the Middle Eastern culture, or I don't know the Vietnamese culture or the Kenyan culture. And who am I to think that my way of coaching or speaking would be appropriate? So it made total sense that someone from that culture would be the one heading up PBT in their region.
Yeah, definitely. This is a really, really odd question, I guess. So in some ways, I guess having to go through the betrayal has created the person you are today, and the strong relationship with your husband, and the whole business. It's amazing how many people that do something not the same as this, but in a sort of, in a caring and a giving and nurturing and empathic way, have been through a situation and have lived it, and not just somebody that's like, it's not just book learning. You've got the science to support everything, but you've lived it. So if you could go back and not have to live that, but then be something very different, would you, or would have the benefits of the betrayal outweigh the stage 1, 2, 3 out at the time?
Yeah, and I know it sounds so crazy. Would I choose this to have what I have now? I'm not gonna lie, it was the hardest thing I've ever been through.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've been through death of a loved one. I've been through disease. I was in the ICU for 11 days. Like, I know trauma, but seeing what this has done on a super small scale, my family, my kids are closer than ever now that they're partners. Like, we have this beautiful family. The greater impact with all of the coaches and all of our members and all the people that have been served, and seeing what this work does to people, clearly, it's for a good reason. So for that, I'll take it.
It's funny, isn't it? You sort of always hope that that there is a purpose to life, to what your life is, and it's, well, like your purpose found you. It wasn't something you're going out and thinking, right, I'm going to try and be betrayed so I can launch this amazing institute, these amazing things. It's something that happened to you, but you took it on, and to say you ran with it is such an understatement. I think you're doing wonderful work, and hopefully it gets to a wider audience. And I think your point about certifying and supporting therapists and psychologists, psychiatrists is really, really, really important. Because I was so good to a therapist, talked lots and lots and lots and lots, and then it was sort of okay. So I've told you I was owning my story, and I was living the story, and I was giving the story more and more color, more and more details, but it was the same story. It was never changing. And I think showing therapists, psychiatrists, doctors that actually you need to help them change the story. You need to help them into that willingness stage. So I think, the more people who can get certified, the better, really. So thank you massively for spending the time with me. It's very, very generous. It's given me lots and lots to think about. I'll put lots of links into the notes about the institute and about the work you've done and the things you've done. Because it's something that I think more and more people should understand, that there is a way through betrayal if you change the story, demonstrate the willingness, and accept things can be different and can be better. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.